This episode contains discussion of domestic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
In 2007, 17-year-old Kara Kopetsky walked out of her high school and was never seen again. Everyone close to Kara felt that her abusive ex-boyfriend was behind her disappearance. However, investigators were unable to firmly tie him to Kara's disappearance. In 2016, 21-year-old Jessica Runions also disappeared in a nearby Missouri town. The man she was last seen with? Kara's ex-boyfriend, Kylr Yust. It wasn't until one of Yust's close family members confessed to his involvement that investigators were able to finally start to piece together what had happened to both Kara and Jessica and finally bring justice and closure to them and their families.
All right. We should have done a trigger warning for you're just going to be real mad.
Yeah.
This is one of those cases that you're just going to be real mad. We do, before we jump into the case, want to give a Hey Girl thanks to Madison for writing this one up. Hey Girl, thanks. And we've had a few requests for this one.
We want to thank Megan, Alana Coons, Megan Thompson, Danielle Ward, and Kristen Bartles.
Thank you guys. Let's jump right in, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
Kara Elise Kopetsky was born on February 17th, 1990 in Frankfurt, Germany to Rhonda and Michael Kopetsky. She was the couple's only child, and she grew up with a carefree attitude. After moving back to the United States, Kara's parents eventually divorced, and then Rhonda ended up marrying a man named Jim Beckford. They also have a child together that's Kara's younger half-brother, Thomas. The family lived in Belton, Missouri, which was a working-class town, and that's just under a half-hour south of Kansas City, Missouri. Kara attended Belton High School and had a group of friends that she was incredibly loyal to. One of Kara's close friends, Jennifer, who'd known Kara since middle school, described her friend as happy, energetic, and someone who could always see the positive side of things. This positive energy radiated to the people around her. She was a great friend, and Jennifer said that Kara was always there for her, absolutely no matter what was going on. And she later told interviewers that their favorite song was Chasing Cars by Snow Patrol. And they would actually call each other when it came on the radio, and they would laugh about it. I mean, and this is, early 2000s. You couldn't pick what you wanted to listen to on Spotify, y'all.
Yes, and I did pick that song to listen to on Spotify last night because it brought back all of...
Yeah, we saw Snow Patrol live, and they must have done this song 15 times.
I think they did it at least 3, because the first time they did it, it was their instruments weren't all the way in tune or something. And so then they did it again, and then I have no idea why they did it for the other time. But...
Yeah, they just kept saying they weren't getting it right, and so they wanted to get it right, because, that's got to be that's their biggest hit, right? It's not my favorite Snow Patrol song, but it's their biggest hit.
Yes.
Yeah. They're, I do love some Snow Patrol.
Me too.
And they spent a lot of their free time hanging out at each other's houses and, just being teenage girls. Mike Miller, one of Kara's teachers from Belton High School, thought she was a very special girl, and he said, quote, "She was a little ornery, a little funny, my type of kid, but I will always remember she had one of those grins that when she smiled, it just went ear to ear." And he actually said it was hard to get on to her about anything because she had that beautiful smile. Another friend said that if it weren't for Kara, she wouldn't be where she was today. Kara had befriended her at church and convinced her to keep coming back, and she credits Kara as the reason that she's a Christian today. And she truly cared about the people she loved and never had a problem with letting them know. And she's 17, you guys.
Yeah. She made a huge impact in such a short amount of time.
And her family was really, I watched interviews with her mom, on the news, because this is something that was covered on the news a lot. And her mom credited her faith over and over as the reason that she was able to get through her daughter disappearing and all of these things. So they were a really, I would say, spiritual family, I guess. Yeah. And it seemed like they kind of imparted that on people around them. And they were just really, really positive people.
Absolutely. On the morning of Friday, May 4th, 2007, Kara gave her mom a hug and a kiss, and she told her that she loved her and that she'd see her after school. She called her mom from school and asked her to wash her work uniform so she could come home after school, she could change, and then go to work. Kara worked part-time at a local chicken restaurant called Popeyes. Now, I'm wondering, is this the same Popeyes that I know? Love that chicken from Popeyes. Yes.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Right there. We were right there.
Popeye's chicken is fucking awesome.
Because Popeyes is pretty big chain restaurant, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, we have them here.
Yeah.
For sure.
I don't know. But anyway, so to Rhonda's surprise, Kara never came home after school and she never showed up to work. So Rhonda started calling Kara's cell phone, but there was no answer. And Rhonda got concerned because her daughter didn't return any of her phone calls, and that was extremely unlike her. She always called her mom back. So her parents quickly went into panic mode. Local police were notified by Kara's parents that they were really concerned that something had happened to their daughter. Police, in classic police fashion, were like, oh, she probably run away. She's 17.
She's just a runaway. She'll be back.
Yeah.
She went to hang out with friends. She'll come back when she's ready to come home.
Yeah. But, yeah, go ahead.
She's not allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
She's a child. She's a child. Like, why are we not considering 17-year-olds children when they're still children?
I don't know.
And she had very, very firm plans. If she was the kind of kid who often would run away and disappear for a few days, I could see where the police would be like, well, this isn't her history, even though we've seen that happen where there are kids who have a history of running away and the parents know that there's something wrong this time.
Right.
You know, and we don't listen to that. But even if she had, you have to look into that kind of stuff. And they didn't. They just said, she probably ran away.
Right.
But she was supposed to go to work that night. She had called her mom and said, wash my uniform, please. I've got to go to work tonight. And if you called her work, they would not tell you she didn't show up on a regular basis.
Right.
It's very unlike her.
Well, and I think that it's so important to take into account that family members, parents, whoever, they know their kids or their loved ones, I think, well enough to know that they're not going to, if it's out of character for them, it's out of character for them. Like,
yeah. And if you're going to tell a parent, well, you're just freaking out over nothing, and then you call their job and they say she's never done that before.
Right.
Like, come on. But they didn't.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of phone calls they didn't make. We'll get into that.
Yeah. Let's just get ready. Regardless of the police's initial instincts, they still had a minor missing. So they started asking questions at the last place she'd been seen, which was Belton High School. Friends confirmed that Kara had made it to school that day, and she was talking to them in the morning, asking if anybody wanted to skip school. Her friends decided not to, but Kara, it didn't bother her. She still did it. Surveillance video at the high school showed Kara leaving school at 9:21 a.m., and there didn't appear to be anybody with her. Rhonda was immediately suspicious of Kara's 19-year-old boyfriend, Kylr Yust. Now, guys, listen, it's not his fault that his name is Kylr, but it is his parents' fault because they named him Kylr, which is whatever, but it's spelled Kylr.
Yeah. When I first started looking into this, I was like, somebody made a typo. Yeah. Because I was like, this newspaper just didn't print it correctly. I was like, his name must be Kyle. Why is there no ER or AR? I mean, I get you can spell your kid's name however you want to. I mean, my name's Torella. I'm not coming for anybody if you got a different kind of name.
This is a stones throwing in glass houses type of situation, but
yes, 100%. This guy is the biggest douchebag I think that has ever walked the earth, and then just his name being Kylr is just like with just
Kylr. Kylr. I just yes.
Klur. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that made me feel a lot better about, because I'm not trying to roast anybody that doesn't deserve to be roasted, and we get, I don't know, I'm not free from being roasted as well. I get it, but he's a piece of trashes, and I think that that's the important part here. That's what I'm trying to drive home. So
dirty brown water trash.
Yes. I'm sure if I met another Kylr that was spelled the same way, but it was a totally awesome guy, I'd be like, oh, I like it. It's not bad. But this guy really just grinds my gears. Yes. Kara and Kylr had started dating in 2006, but they were no longer together. Their relationship had become very toxic, with Kara telling people that Kylr was physically and emotionally abusive. On April 21st, which is 2 weeks, just 2 weeks before Kara had gone missing, Yust showed up unexpectedly at Kara's friend Amy's house. Kara left Amy's house with Yust and returned almost an hour later, and she reportedly had a swollen lip and, quote, choke marks around her neck. And then Kylr then continuously called Kara's cell phone, but Kara did not pick up. So less than a week later, on April 28th, Kylr showed up at Kara's work just as she was leaving.
Of course.
He convinced her.
Because he knew she'd be walking to her car by herself.
Right, yes. He convinced her to get into his truck, where he drove around and physically assaulted her before dropping her off in the next city over. What is wrong with this person?
He couldn't even bring her back to her car. I mean, my God. You find your way home.
Exactly. It's like, it's just so shitty to do to somebody. And for some reason, something that's coming to mind is like, I've seen this video on Instagram where it's like siblings be like, and the sister's in the room just minding her own business, and the brother comes in and he just like knocks something off of the desk and then turns the light off and just leaves the door open. And it's like, why?
Yeah, exactly. Why? Yeah.
And obviously this is much, much worse, but it's like, but why? Like, why do you got to do that? Just bring her back. My God.
And then he wonders why she won't get back together with him.
Exactly.
I wonder why, dude.
Right? 2 days later, on April 30th, Kara and her mother went to the police station so Kara could file a restraining order against Kylr. In the report, she checked the boxes indicating that Kylr had caused physical and emotional harm to her, as well as stalking her. Under what act she was referring to, Kara wrote, quote, Saturday, 4/28, kidnapped, restrained. 1 month ago, choked me. December 6th, had knife in hand and said, quote, I'm gonna slit your mother. March 7th, wouldn't let me out of my home.
Let's not take it seriously, though.
Right, yeah. Under the space where it asked why the person posed a risk to the person filing the report, Kara wrote, quote, because I'm unsure of what he'll do next, because the abuse has gotten worse over time. On May 1st, Kylr was served with a restraining order and explicitly was told that he was not to have any contact with Kara. And 3 days later, Kara disappeared.
Why was he not arrested for assault?
I don't know.
She had physical marks on her.
Mm-hmm.
This was not the first time it had happened. Other people could corroborate this. Why was he not arrested?
And I get that. I mean, she's filling out a form to get this restraining order, right? But it feels like adding insult to injury or something that you have to write down. She wrote down everything, all the acts that she had experienced from Kylr. And then underneath it, it's like, why do you think this guy poses a risk to you? It's like, did you see above?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, like, I don't know. And maybe it's just standard form and whatever, but that really pissed me off. I was like...
Yeah. And she, I mean,
okay,
she's
but
17
did you die,
years old.
Like...
Exactly. She's 17 years old, and she says, because the abuse has gotten worse over time. And that's exactly what happens. And it continues to escalate, and it can absolutely escalate to murder. Especially
if the survivor, whatever word you want to use, victim of the domestic abuse, decides, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. That's this. I mean, we've talked about it how many times? It's the scariest time.
It's the most dangerous time. And he has threatened to kill her before.
Mm-hmm. I will slit your mother throat. And he's holding a knife. It's not like you say, like, in passing, or like, oh my God, I could kill that person right now. Like, that's not the same. This is a threat.
And him showing up at her work when he knows damn well, and maybe he didn't know her schedule for that day, but he knew she worked there. He could have very well sat outside and waited for her to come out.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, but that is stalking. That is stalking. Sitting outside and watching somebody or showing up to their work when you know they're going to be alone and vulnerable. That is stalking, and it's f***ing serious.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's not taken very seriously, like, okay, well, because, I mean, again, I know I've told the story so many times, but when I had to take a restraining order out against my ex because same stuff. He was threatening and he was following me and he was showing up at my work when I was getting off. And I ended up having to have my boss ended up having to have a man walk me out to my car every night when I left because we didn't know when he'd be there and all this stuff. He got a job where I worked. They fired him when they found out what was going on, all this stuff. But I got the restraining order and he didn't care. He still kept showing up everywhere. That did not bother him whatsoever. And when I called and said, he's here, he's not supposed to be here. They're like, well, then you need to leave. I'm like, what? Like, I'm just trying to go to church. How come he gets to stay and I have to leave? He knows he's not supposed to be here if I'm here. He's the one that did something wrong, whatever. And I said, and they were like, well, by the time we get there, he'll probably already be gone. There's no reason to send somebody out. I'm like, but shouldn't he be arrested because he's violating it? And I was like, I don't understand why I have this then. I don't understand what the point of this is. And they literally said to me, well, that way if he kills you, he'll get in more trouble. Because it's documented. Or I guess she didn't say if he kills you. If he finally does something to you, he'll get in more trouble because it's documented. Oh, that's why I got it. Okay, well that makes sense. It makes me feel better. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't understand why police officers don't take this kind of stuff more seriously. And we have talked about there are some times where they do. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that in every case, but the vast majority of it is they're like, well, you leave. This is now your problem.
And let me tell you, if somebody threatens to kill you, it doesn't matter, or threatens to harm you in some way, it doesn't matter if they never actually go through with it. If they're telling you that they're dangerous, believe them. Believe them. Because, and Kara did, and she did all the right things. And yeah, maybe she ended up getting into a car with him again, but she's 17, she cares about this person, and she also trusts him. And he is the type of person, and all abusers are this way, they gradually become abusive so that you kind of brush the abuse off at first and you're like, but he's usually really nice to me. Maybe he's just having a bad day. And then you start to believe that you did something to deserve it or you did something to provoke it and all these things. It is such a gradual thing. It is a grooming process. It is done that way on purpose so that you will continue. And sometimes people are scared she may have been afraid to not get in the car with them. We don't know. But I don't know. I guess I'm just it makes me really angry. And just from personal experience, I just want to say that if you're in a situation like this and you are hoping it will get better, I want you to know that the typical way that it's going to play out is that it will continue to escalate and it's going to get worse. Please keep yourself safe. It's just really sad. And the thing about Kylr Yust was he was super charming. And now seeing him in news reports, where anchors are talking to him, he comes off very full of himself and very kind of combative and stuff like that. He just seems like a douchebag. But I can see where he may, he could be very charming with people, but they also described him as having a dark side. They said that he had violent tendencies, and unfortunately, Kara was sometimes on the receiving end of this. On May the 6th, police interviewed him, and he told him that he was with his grandfather at a nursing home in Kansas City on the day that Kara disappeared, and he had no involvement in her disappearance. And do you know what the police said? Well, clearly they followed up on that, right? Make sure he was telling the truth.
We wish.
They were like, okay, if he says he was there, he's there. Sounds right to me.
We don't need to look into this any further. We don't need to verify that or anything.
They never followed up. Not once. Made no phone calls, never tried to see if surveillance video caught him on a camera. Nothing. An attendant at a local convenience store told police that he saw Kara and Kylr together on the day that she disappeared, around 11 or 11:30 at his store. There were reportedly problems following up with this worker. Police never got surveillance video footage either. And in fact, they lost track of this person altogether. Lost his ass.
It makes me wonder if the police in this case had a clear understanding of their jobs. Did they know that they were supposed to do that kind of stuff?
Maybe not. Maybe they didn't know they were supposed to follow up on alibis.
Or, interview witnesses or get surveillance footage. Especially, it really, really shrinks my hat when surveillance video is like, oh, the cameras weren't working, or oh, we already taped over it, or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But if they actually had it and they just didn't get it,
come on.
I'm fixing to throw these hands. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
At everything around me, not at anybody. I'm just going to start knocking shit over.
Become a little kitty cat.
Boop.
Yeah.
And then I'll use my litter box.
Kylr told police that his last contact with Kara was on May 3rd, the day before she disappeared. And he says Kara called him on the 4th, but he did not answer. And then when he tried to call her back, Kara just didn't pick up. So, yeah, she tried to call him, but he never talked to her. But the police do check his phone records.
Surprising.
And it doesn't match his story. So, Kara did call him, and he had called her back. But she answered. They spoke. They talked for 20 minutes. And that's at 9:20 a.m., which is the time that Kara is seen on surveillance footage leaving the school. But he told them that it had been, later in the day. They never talked, whatever. So when the police tell him what they'd found on his phone records, this tells you everything you need to know about Kylr Yust, I feel like. He stuck to his story. No, he didn't. No, it didn't.
I don't understand being caught in a bold-faced lie and then being like, you're wrong. Like, dude, I have proof. I caught you.
Exactly. And so you can see how that's the type of personality that he has. That's the kind of person who will gaslight somebody, who will literally make you question your own reality in a relationship. No, I didn't. I didn't talk to her.
He's a sociopath.
I'm looking at it, dude. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. It doesn't faze him. Yeah. If I lied to the police and they found out, my God, I would pass out from just sheer panic.
Yeah, me too.
They'd be like, well, actually, I checked his. I'd be like,
Torella has left the chat. Like,
oh my gosh. Like, I would be like devastated. He doesn't care. So he sticks to the story. He says he had not talked to her on the phone that day. He did admit to the incident where he had essentially kidnapped her in April, but he still denied any involvement in her disappearance.
I mean, I kidnapped her once, but that doesn't mean that I did it this last time. Yeah,
exactly. Over a month ago. And he even in a news interview, a reporter is talking to him and they're like, do you know where Kara is? Did you kidnap Kara? Did you do something to Kara? And he was like, dude, no. The only reason they're even calling me a suspect is because this is what they told me, because of prior incidences. They don't have anything that says I kidnapped her that day. All they had is when I kidnapped her before. It doesn't even go together.
That's a pattern of behavior.
Tori, I was thinking the same thing. We've been covering I Am a Stalker. I guess by the time this comes out, we'll be well done with that on the Patreon. But we've been covering that show, and the very first episode is called Pattern of Behavior. And I'm telling you, when I was reading everything about this case, I'm like, pattern of behavior. My God. It's very frustrating. So after this, a witness comes forward at some point later to authorities to tell them that he had spoken to Kara on the day that she went missing. And this witness was a mutual friend of Kylr Yust and Kara. And he said Kara had called him that morning. She asked if she and Kylr could come hang out at his place, because remember, she was skipping school. And he said, I'm busy. Sorry, it's not going to work. So Kara didn't come over. However, Kylr Yust did show up to his house around 12:30 p.m. to smoke a cigarette alone. And the friend said that later that day, Kylr called him very, very upset, begging him not to tell anyone that he'd been with Kara that day. And he told him it was because he didn't want to get in trouble for violating the restraining order. And so this friend started trying to call Kara after this, but his calls went straight to voicemail. Obviously, he was never able to get in touch with her. All right, so now we're to May 9th. Kara's paycheck at Popeyes is available for her to pick up. She does not go get it. A 17-year-old who doesn't get their paycheck Big name deal.
Yeah.
Especially considering she's never no-showed before. It's not in her character to miss work and, whatever. But I mean, when I was 17, I couldn't put $3 worth of gas in my tank if I didn't have a damn paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I was going to put in there.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that. But, like, I mean, every penny counts.
Mm-hmm. And,
like,
it's not like this is her dream job where she's working for fun. I mean, I've had the best times working those little part-time jobs. It's the people and, but the work, it's not like you enjoy cleaning fried chicken grease up and stuff, like she's working hard for something and that is to get paid. So
exactly. Yeah. That's a huge red flag. And that just, is another indication to everybody around her that she had not disappeared by choice, because she would need money to survive if she was just like disappearing for a few days or weeks or whatever.
Right.
And there's also still no activity on her social media or bank accounts. And the police end up finding her debit card in her locker at school, which they didn't check for like weeks or months. But
what were they doing? I don't get it. But, and again, I mean, some people might think like, oh, who cares about social media? But that is big for a teenager. Especially those were MySpace days. Like, we were always getting on MySpace.
Holy shit. Oh my God. Every thought, I used it like a Zanga.
Me too.
Like a journal.
Yes.
And certainly you were going to change your song or your background every few days, depending on what kind of mood you were in.
Top 8? I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my boyfriend pissed me off. Since you've been gone, Kelly Clarkson. Boom. Up there.
And he is
every time
at the very bottom of the top 8. Still on there, but he has lost his first place.
Yep. Not happy with you. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, So on July 23rd, police go to talk to Kylr Yust again, and he told them that when he talked to Kara on the phone on May 3rd, they had an argument. And he said, "This is so frustrating to me." He had accused Kara of, quote, planning to spend the weekend partying and running around on him. You're not together anymore, sir.
Yeah.
What do you mean running around on you?
Not being faithful to your ex-boyfriend?
Exactly. Tell me you are
controlling?
A manipulative, controlling sociopath without telling me that you're a manipulative, controlling sociopath.
Yep.
She denied this, of course. They got in an argument, but he was like, but I certainly didn't talk to her on the phone the day before. I don't know what you've heard, but that's wrong. You obviously are unable to read. You read that report wrong. Somebody fudged it. I don't know what happened, but I didn't talk to her that day.
Right.
And I don't know where she is. So months pass. This turns into years, and there's no sign of Kara. She never contacted her family. She never contacted her friends. And even though it was difficult, Kara's family tried to hold on to hope. There were no solid leads coming in. The community refused to let the case fade away, though. They held rallies, they held vigils, they passed out flyers, they put on events, they participated in everything they could to keep Kara's face in the public eye. Her family did interviews, and they made sure that nobody forgot that they were still looking for Kara.
Ugh. It's so bittersweet, because it's so sweet that they obviously cared so much for her, and I wouldn't expect her family to be like, oh, well, but I mean, the community itself too, everybody was like, no, we're not going to forget about this. But it's just so sad that this had to happen. It's just, it's outrageous.
Well, and when we say no solid leads came in, I guess that's kind of, more according to the police. Because we're about to get into some stuff here.
In 2008, Kylr reportedly confessed while he was drunk to his new girlfriend, Caitlin Ferris, that he had killed Kara. Caitlin said that Kylr asked her if she knew about him and Kara, and he then told her that he'd put Kara in his car and she was never seen again. Can you imagine your new boyfriend being like, remember that missing girl? That was me. Like, I cannot imagine what was going through her mind.
Absolutely.
In 2009, Kylr, again drunk, supposedly told one of his former roommates that he had, quote, snapped and killed Kara because she, quote, refused to love him. On April 26th of 2010, that roommate called Belton police and told them what Kylr had confessed to him. And in late of 2010, Kylr's then ex-girlfriend, Caitlin Ferris, had contacted the FBI, or was contacted by the FBI, excuse me. She told them that they were still on good terms, and so investigators asked her if she'd be willing to wear a wire and meet with Kylr. Caitlin agreed and traveled from North Carolina to Missouri, where she'd arranged a meeting with Kylr. During the audio and video recording of that meeting, and Kylr has no idea that he's being recorded at this time, right? They had a lot of small talk. Caitlin asked him what his raven tattoo around his neck meant, and Kylr replied that it was representative of fingers around the neck of death.
Wow, brag much?
It's a massive neck tattoo like this, and apparently it means fingers around your neck. Ugh.
Being choked to death, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Caitlin asked Kylr if they could use a Ouija board to contact Kara and see if she was happy, and Caitlin tried to convince Kylr that he could tell her what had happened, that he could trust her, and Kylr said that he could only trust her as far as he could throw her. And she told him that he'd feel better about getting it off of his chest. And Kylr said that he wished he'd never told Caitlin about this entire thing.
Also, this is really brave of her to do, because if she believes that he's killed Kara,
she's putting herself in the line of fire. Yes.
Absolutely. That's really brave.
Mm-hmm. Can't even imagine. Caitlin had picked up Kylr in her car, and they were heading to the spot where they were going to use the Ouija board. And Kylr is heard saying, quote, "We're going to the death spot of the girlfriend I killed." Is that not a confession?
That's what I don't understand, because their whole thing is they want to get a confession out of him, and then they're like, well, we didn't get anything we could use.
Why not? It's because, is it because he didn't say where he dumped her? They didn't have a body to...
That's what I don't get, because if all they're looking for is the confession...
They just got it, right?
Maybe they were just looking for where they could recover her remains. That certainly would tie him to the case much, much more strongly than him just saying, I killed her. But
this is 4 years after she's gone missing. So she hasn't shown up. She hasn't turned up anywhere alive.
No. And he even says to Caitlin, like, you're really turned on because I killed this girl, aren't you? Like, he says stuff like that. And it's like, what?
No.
Oh, he's yucky.
No. Yeah. He called himself a killer and said that he wasn't good enough for anyone because he had killed someone. And Kylr starts telling Caitlin that she'll probably never hear from him again because he's going to end his own life. So the two, they refocus on the Ouija board. And Caitlin said that she thought Kara seemed like a cool girl. And Kylr told her that Kara was awesome and that she and Kara would have really liked each other. This pisses me off. You don't get to talk about her that way. You don't get to talk about her that way.
Yeah, you guys would have totally gotten along.
Why can't we? Oh, because you killed her.
Oh, because you killed her.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's why.
Ugh. Once they finally reached the place where they were going to use the Ouija board, Caitlin asked Kylr if he was excited to hear what Kara had to say. And he responded that he wasn't. And he said, quote, "Do you understand this is the biggest up of my entire life?" And reportedly, Caitlin tried to get Kylr to tell her where Kara was, but he wouldn't. In August of 2011, one of Kylr's ex-girlfriends came to the police to file a restraining order against him. Pattern of behavior.
And what did he do to her?
Right. She told investigators that he had choked her several times and that he'd admitted to killing girlfriends in the past and that he would kill her too. And she also said that he'd hurt and killed animals in front of her. In September, Kylr pled guilty to assault and animal abuse charges, and he was sentenced to 2 years of probation and required to attend a batterer prevention program.
I'm sorry, 2 years of probation? Okay.
Yeah, let that sink in.
Okay.
Go
Probably won't
ahead,
do it again.
Prep the window. Get it prepped, ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, everything has to go out the window here.
Even my
everything
own self.
has to go out the window. Yeah.
On June 5th, 2012, a witness contacted the Belton police to inform them that earlier that year, Kylr admitted to him that he'd picked Kara up from school on the day that she disappeared because she'd had an argument with a teacher. And he told the witness that he and Kara had gotten into a physical fight and he choked her to death before placing her body in the woods.
How many times do you have to hear the same story to believe it? To look into don't even take him at his word. Fucking look into it.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, well, we haven't had any solid leads yet, so how many people have contacted them about Kylr?
He's telling literally everybody. He's bragging about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's telling every girl that he becomes in a relationship with.
Yeah.
You have the audacity to leave me? I'll kill you like I killed Kara.
Mm-hmm. It's just, it's so incredibly ridiculous to me that, because a lot of times what it's like, people can keep a secret as long as somebody keeps their mouth shut. Kylr is a prime example of how he cannot keep his mouth shut. Thank God.
No.
But even with that, it still doesn't help for forever. Yeah. It's like,
exactly.
What else do you want? I mean,
he literally spends a decade walking around being like, I killed Kara, I killed Kara, I killed Kara, I killed Kara.
Yep. It's like he's wearing a t-shirt that says, ask me about killing my ex-girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
He'll tell you.
Yeah.
In 2013, Kylr was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months in prison for drug trafficking charges. And because, again, couldn't shut his pie hole, a cellmate of Kylr said that Kylr had asked him to get him an alibi because he'd killed Kara and gotten rid of her body. So now a total of at least 7 witnesses came to police and reported that Kylr had told them that he had murdered Kara, but charges still were not brought against him.
No. So now we're going to talk about Jessica Runions, because you can apparently choke women, kidnap women, physically assault women, threaten to murder women. You can stalk women. You can abuse animals and kill animals in front of these women. You get probation, but you sell drugs, man, you're going to jail.
Mm-hmm. That's where they draw the line.
That's where they draw the line. Jessica Runions was born on July 10th, 1995 to Jamie and John. She was described by her family as a generous, loyal young woman who loved music, dancing, and baking. She was a beautiful girl who especially loved her family. Jessica and her little sister Megan had an especially close relationship, and Megan looked up to her. She was fun-loving, she was outgoing, she was someone who her friends could always count on. And Jessica had a big heart, and she loved working as a cook and server at a nearby retirement home. So at this time, she's 21 years old, and she enjoyed going out with her friends in her hometown of Raymore, Missouri, which is just a few miles south of Belton, where Kara had lived. On Thursday, September 8th, 2016, Jessica attended a party at a friend's house in Grandview, and she was seen leaving the party around 11 p.m. in her black Chevy Equinox. Her friend had been with her that night, and witnesses remembered that he seemed really jealous of Jessica talking to other friends. This friend had to have all of her attention, apparently. Despite the perceived problems between the two, Jessica left the party with her friend. This friend just so happened to have been released from prison 6 days earlier.
Who was it?
6 days earlier, and his name was Kylr Yust. 6 days, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
He's out of prison.
Couldn't make it a full week without murdering someone else. On Friday, September 9th, after discovering that no one had seen or talked to Jessica since she left the party, Jamie Runions contacted police to report her daughter missing. Police began interviewing those who had seen her at the party, as well as people who lived near the duplex where the party had taken place, but no one had seen Jessica. Early Saturday morning, they had discovered her black Chevy Equinox on the side of the road in an isolated area. The vehicle had been badly burned. And the thing is, because, doing the research on this, not knowing, I knew that Jessica had disappeared. I knew that. I was like, oh my God, he burned her in that car. She wasn't in there. She wasn't anywhere nearby.
Nope.
Later that night, Kylr was pulled over by police. His half-brother, Jessup Carter, was driving, and his wife was in the passenger seat, so Kylr's in the back seat. The police later said that Kylr seemed very anxious during the traffic stop. Carter's wife had a gun on her, which was confiscated by the police. And after that, the officer just let him go. So they continued driving a few hours south to Carter's hometown, and they dropped Kylr off. And I heard that he was dropped off at a trailer somewhere in the area.
Yeah. But also, the reason that the police officer thought that he seemed anxious was because he straight pissed his pants when they got pulled over. Like, he physically wet himself.
I'd say that's pretty anxious, yeah.
And then they just keep Did he have an extra change of clothes?
I don't know.
I mean, like, you know, I have... Exactly. Like, I've got kids. I keep some extra undies and stuff in the car. I pull up for my younger one. But I don't know that Kylr keeps a pull up in the car for himself.
I don't think so.
It's just like they just keep driving for hours. I'm like, dude, you pissed yourself though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But anyway, that's why they think he seems anxious.
I'd say it's a pretty good sign. Pretty good indicator.
But they bring it up at his trial about 11 times. Remember how you pissed yourself? Did you piss yourself? Remember when you pissed yourself? Do you remember that you pissed yourself? He's like, well, you've made it abundantly clear. The jury remembers. You're so mad.
Well, I've seen a movie one time that said, you're not cool unless you pee your pants, so.
True.
Billy Madison, anyone? No? Miles Davis of cool. Piss your pants. Just to be clear, Kylr Yust, not cool. Not the Miles Davis. No, not cool. No.
No.
On September 11th, Carter called law enforcement and told them that his stepbrother, Kylr, had confessed to murdering Jessica Runions and dragging her body into the woods. Carter reported that he was with Kylr when he burned Jessica's car, and then he'd taken Kylr to his home to heal from the burns he had on his face and hands.
Yeah, so they set this car on fire together. Kylr burns himself. His hands, his face, his hair.
And he's got scratches on his face.
Yeah. On September 11th, 2016 at 9:36 a.m., law enforcement served a search warrant at Carter's home where they found Yust and took him into custody. He was found with those burns on his hands, face, and arms, and with the scratches on his face, so they document this. He was arrested for the burning of Jessica's vehicle, but not yet for murder. The judge set his bond at a very high amount so that he would not be able to get out on bail. And of course, there is a media presence there when he's either, I don't know, I guess being arraigned or he's just gone to court or like whatever. And the reporter is like, hey, Kylr, what happened to your face? And Kylr's like, what happened to your face?
I'm rubber and you're glue. Whatever. It's like,
oh my gosh. And he's like, did you kill Jessica? And he's like, did you kill Jessica? It's like,
what a little brat, man.
He basically was like, up your button around the corner.
Exactly. Taco Bell, can I take your order? Like this is like the shadow game. Like,
yeah. Yeah, because the reporter is like, you know, what happened to your face is what happened to your face. And he's like, well, did you get burned? And he just like sits there and then he's like, did you kill Jessica? Did you? Like, okay. Total burn, man.
Yeah.
Like, bazinga. Good one.
A burn as good as your face. It's,
exactly.
Yeah.
Grow up.
Exactly. Like, what a freaking baby.
What happened to your face? My God. On April 3rd, 2017, a mushroom hunter called police to inform that he discovered what looked to be human remains in a wooded area.
So I didn't know that there was such a thing. I think we've talked about this before. A mushroom hunter.
Well, isn't that who found Holly Bobo's body?
Yes. I was like, I know that this is a thing, but hearing it like, oh, a mushroom hunter. I'm like envisioning the guy from the original Jumanji with like the helmet and he's like out hunting mushrooms. Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know. That's what comes to mind there.
That's funny. So the next day they find a second set of remains nearby. So we're just.
Thank God for mushroom hunters. They are unsung heroes.
That's what I'm saying. One set of remains was clearly much older than the other. Just 2 days after the remains were found, the Kansas City Crime Lab identified the first set as the remains of Jessica Runions. And in an interview, Jamie expressed relief that her daughter had finally been found, but she said it's not over. She's like, it's not a resolution unless we find Kara too. We're a team and it's still not finished for me. And Jamie and Kara's mother, Rhonda, had formed just a very, very tight bond. I mean, and it's very clear from the onset that their cases are connected too. They're both last seen with Kylr.
100%, yeah. It's just sad to me that I'm so glad that they had each other to lean on in this situation, but it's one of those things where it's like the reason why they bonded so much. It's so sad.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Finally, in August of 2017, that second set of remains was identified by the FBI crime lab, and they did belong to Kara Kopetsky. So on October 5th, 2017, Kylr Yust is finally charged with the first-degree murders of Kara and Jessica.
So I think it's obvious to all of us that Kylr Yust is, again, a disgusting piece of trashes. He's a slime ball. He's a douchebag. He's a disgust. He's a yucky McGucky, you know? But he was able to get the best public defenders. His stepbrother, Jessup Carter, was supposed to be a key witness, but he was found dead in his jail cell where he was actually being held on arson charges. So this gave the defense the opportunity to blame the murders on Carter since he was no longer there to defend himself.
What a piece of garbage. Like, he's like, oh, my brother's not here anymore. I'll blame the whole thing on him. And Jessup was not arrested on arson charges because of the vehicle. He set a house on fire.
Yes, he sure did. So, I mean, he had some issues as well, but it's not fair to be like, it was that guy.
That guy did it, yeah. And you guys, you're not ready for what he blames on his brother.
The prosecution called several witnesses to testify, including one of his ex-girlfriends who previously told police that Kylr had confessed to her that he'd murdered Kara. And she spoke of his violence and the abuse she suffered while they were dating. She testified that one day when she was packing to leave him, he attacked her and strangled her and said, quote, "I have killed ex-girlfriends before out of sheer jealousy. I will kill you before you can let another scream out of your throat." And the way she said it when she was on the stand, it was powerful. She was convicted. She was brave to get up there and say it because he's sitting right there.
Yep, and that's terrifying.
The prosecution talked about Kylr's childhood and how he grew up living with his grandparents and his stepbrother, Jessup. And he had an extremely strained relationship with both parents, but particularly with his mother. They even played a recording from a jailhouse phone call between Kylr and his mom, where she begged him to tell her where Kara's body was. And Kylr explained that he was just, quote, playing into her narrative because he wanted to do whatever he could to hurt his mother, not because he actually killed anybody.
So he is going to essentially admit that he'd killed somebody, but that he won't tell her where the body is on a recorded line in jail just to fuck with her.
Yeah.
As a goof.
Okay. Bold move. Another witness brought forward was a local man named Ryan Talley. He said that on the day that Kara had disappeared, he'd seen Kylr's truck traveling south around noon on the highway that connected to the area where the body was later found. And Talley recognized Kylr's truck from a friend's house and was surprised because he'd never seen him driving in that area before. So this is out of character for him. And it just so happens to be coincidentally right in the area where the body was found.
Right.
Jessica's ex-boyfriend, Jackson, took the stand to talk about her relationship with Kylr, Jackson said that after he and Jessica moved in together, they began to have trouble in their relationship, so they started sleeping in separate bedrooms. At the time of her disappearance, it was believed that Jessica was dating Kylr, and he had become incredibly jealous about her continued on and off relationship with Jackson. And, she's still living with him at this point, so this is very likely a motive for murder.
Yep. I think Kylr's middle name he's Kylr. If I can't have you, nobody can. Yust.
Kylr, I'm jealous of everyone, and I'm incredibly controlling and possessive. Shitbag Yust.
Kylr, my germs, Yust. Like.
Yes, exactly.
Everything's mine.
ugh. And when did they... I'm guessing because Jessica went missing 6 days after Kylr had gotten out of prison. Did they date when he was in prison? Like, this seems like if they didn't, this is a fairly fresh relationship, and he's already this jealous and possessive of her.
And he's super jealous of Kara when they're not together anymore. I think that, maybe Jessica was having, this is pure speculation, Jessica was having issues with her boyfriend. She was friends with Kylr. He was into her, and maybe she showed some interest, but was not ready to move on from her ex-boyfriend. And he can't handle that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying that there needs to be a prolonged amount of time that somebody is with somebody for them to become that jealous or anything, because there's no excuse for that kind of jealousy and possessiveness. But I'm just saying, like, it is interesting. Yeah. I mean, as far as it seems to me, he's out of jail for 6 days, and he's
so possessive,
coming in so hot. Yes.
Yeah.
On the last day of the trial, Kylr took the stand in his own defense. He denied both murders, and he blamed his stepbrother. And the prosecution said to him, this is so good, I love it so much. She said, quote, "You must be the most unlucky guy in the world. You've had 2 girlfriends go missing, and the last person they were seen with is you. That's pretty unlucky, isn't it?" And Kylr's on the stand, and he said, "I think that's extremely unlucky, but anyone who has a brother that's a serial killer, I would say, is very unlucky."
Okay. So your brother's a serial killer, but he only kills your ex-girlfriend.
Right. It's nothing to laugh about, but, like, seriously, like, it's a laughable defense, because are you kidding me right now? Like, you're the common denominator, and you are the one who has been seen with them. Jessup Carter wasn't anywhere near them. Yes, he was there when they burned Jessica's car, but...
Which he reported to the police.
Yes, exactly!
Jessup Carter had some of his own issues and demons and whatever, but what a horrible thing to do to your own flesh and blood.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone, I'll blame it on him. And actually, his response when he found out that Jessup was dead was, "I don't fucking care." And the prosecution brought that up in the trial, and he was like, "I didn't use those exact words, but yeah, I thought he had a lot more coming to him than taking the easy way out since he'd killed so many people." I mean, just throwing his name right under the bus.
That's some bullshit.
That's your brother,
man.
dude.
Yeah. I mean, clearly he doesn't give a shit about anybody except for himself, which is not surprising or shocking, but it's just kind of like, wow, you really have no redeeming qualities, dude.
No, not even one.
As the jury deliberated, there were still a lot of questions surrounding both cases. Most frustrating, though, was that people couldn't understand why Kylr wasn't charged with Kara's murder in the years before Jessica's murder. Many witnesses came forward. I mean, we talked about at least 7. It came forward to police to tell them that Kylr confessed to them, and it seemed as though there was plenty of information that connected Kylr to Kara's death. But unfortunately, it would have been very difficult to bring murder charges against Kylr without a body, or really any other physical evidence for that matter. Additionally, while there were many people who relayed information about Kylr to police, the information came at different times from different people and was never able to be confirmed. Now, I don't know. I know some of it, like, oh, he told me this. That's hearsay, right? I mean, it's like, you don't really know, but their track record for confirming things, not the best. So,
and it seems like he definitely visited the spot again where he
did whenever he took Jessica.
Bodies.
Yeah. He visited the spot where he dumped Kara, but I'm sure he did it after he dumped both bodies. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Like, can we not get somebody
to follow it, like tail him or something, you know, like. Again, it seemed as though investigators wanted and needed concrete evidence before charging Kylr. But despite all of this, the community felt as though Jessica's murder did not have to happen, and I completely 100% agree. Kara's murder didn't have to happen. If they had actually taken the abuse seriously, maybe something else could have happened. Maybe we would have had a different outcome. I don't know. I wish it could be like, again, like Minority Report, where you could be like, this guy's going to do something and we need to put him in jail, but you can't. That's not the way the world works, but it's frustrating because the signs were
But
there.
again, he's got a history of that pattern of behavior where he is continually assaulting women.
Multiple, every girlfriend he's ever been with.
Mm-hmm. And they report this and they say, sorry that happened to you.
And like you said, I mean, they're like, well, again, and this is me like speculating and kind of being not overly dramatic, but you know what I mean. I'm like, oh, but did you die though? Okay. Oh, but he had drugs? He sold drugs?
That's so frustrating. It's like these women have marks on them. Every bit of physical evidence corroborates their stories, and multiple people coming out and saying the same thing that have no connection to each other than they've all dated him.
Mm-hmm.
And the stories are the same. He's choking them.
Yeah.
He's following them. He's restraining them in some way. You know, like all these things. He's never once arrested for any of that violent behavior. And it does continue to escalate.
Right. And I can imagine that if you were in the situation or in one of his ex-girlfriend's positions, it would feel like keeping drugs off the street is more important than my life.
100%. 100%.
I mean, of course, like we've talked about till we're blue in the face up basically, but like nobody could understand why the Belton police hadn't done something as simple as to confirm Kylr Yust's alibi. Maybe if they had done this, they'd be able to, you know, probe further into Kylr's actual whereabouts and connected him to Kara's murder before Jessica was murdered. This is years before. The jury deliberated for about 15 hours and found Kylr Yust guilty of voluntary manslaughter in the death of Kara and second-degree murder in the death of Jessica. The judge sentenced him to life in prison plus 15 years, and unfortunately, in Missouri, the cap for a life sentence is 30 years, which meant Kylr Yust's sentence would run for 45 years at most. And he is currently serving his sentence at the Maximum Security Western Missouri Correctional Center in Cameron, Missouri.
What also really it doesn't seem like, because all these other girlfriends that he's threatened and attacked and everything, he has said this before Jessica has been killed. He says, I've killed ex-girlfriends out of sheer jealousy. But, I mean, I would think if there are other disappearances linked to him,
they would talk about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if
I
they
don't know if he's just trying to brag or...
Right. I would think even if they couldn't give details about this kind of stuff, it would at least be, you know, like he's suspected in the disappearance of so-and-so or whoever, which right. I hope to God he was just bragging, because 2 is bad. 2 is awful. But if there's more, it's awful too. Like, I don't...
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, maybe he was saying, I've killed girlfriends in the past, but he's like, if he hadn't been stopped when he was, there would be countless more.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when we talked about Action Park, you know? Like,
oh, sure.
You shouldn't have one person die in a wave pool. You damn sure shouldn't have 2. Mm-mm. There should never be a second one, for sure. But, like, he just continued to exhibit this pattern of absolutely violent behavior. And he told everybody about it.
He told everybody. It's just amazing to me, because there are some cases where we're like, man, if somebody would just tell one thing, it would break the case wide open. This guy's going around town for 10 years being like, I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it.
And this is not a situation which, you know, as you're doing the investigation, I know you don't necessarily know this right away, but this is not a situation where this is some random serial killer who was like transient in and out of town, blew into town one day, killed this girl and left or whatever. You've got somebody who has a direct connection to her. Mm-hmm. And took out a restraining order against him 3 days before she disappears.
Yeah. I mean, it's
You got something to go on, y'all. You got something to go on.
Yes.
Yeah. It's frustrating.
It is very frustrating. I mean, of course, we always love to hear what you guys think about the cases that we cover. So if you have any thoughts or anything to add, anything like that, please let us know. We have a Facebook. We have an Instagram account. It's KQ True Crime. Mm-hmm. So find us there.
And we've got, Facebook discussion groups.
Yes.
You can find us there. Yeah.
Killer Queens podcast discussion group. So Find us there.
Yeah,
But thank
find
you
us.
so much for, if you're watching, if you're listening, and we love you, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.